from the 25th chapter, verses 31 to 46. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people, one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." Then he will say to those on his left hand, "You that are accused, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they also will answer, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. May our hearts and minds be inspired by this wisdom.
Thanks be to God.
So this morning we continue with our series of little-known books of the Bible. And today our little-known book is the book of Hosea. So I'll ask, as I usually do, who knows anything about Hosea? Anybody? Anybody? Does anybody know what kind of text it is? No? All right. Well, first I'll tell you, it's one of the minor prophets in the Bible. It's not a minor prophet because it speaks of less important things, but because of its size. It's shorter than the major prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And it comes between Daniel, which comes after Ezekiel, and it's followed by Joel and Amos. So this is the first minor prophet in our series of minor prophets in the Bible. And I'll give you a little overview about this prophetic text. Hosea is a prophet prophesying in the northern kingdom during a time of prosperity. Hosea pronounces God's judgment that in their ease and comfort, the people have forgotten and turned away from the ways of God, righteousness, and mercy. Now, to prove his point, to feel God's pain of the people turning against him, Hosea writes that God has commanded him to take a whore, a temple prostitute, to be his wife. to have children with her, and give them symbolic names. These symbolic names play a poetic role in Hosea's prophecies. Now, frankly, I'll admit to you, I used to hate the book of Hosea. In fact, during my first year of seminary, I wrote a paper all about how Hosea shouldn't even be in our Bible anymore. I thought the negative ramifications of this text far outweighed the positive aspects of the text. And 8 years ago, I would have preached against this text, which is frankly a faithful response to some of the things in our Bible. This book does contain negative images of women and relationships, and in my opinion, negative images of God. When it comes to women, the woman who is the whore of this book, she has no voice. And frankly, the book alludes to physical violence within a relationship, which is never acceptable. Much like our sacred texts have been used to support slavery in the past, this text has been used to support domestic violence, with terrible consequences throughout our history. Furthermore, I didn't much like how God was portrayed. In this book, tragedies are a result of sinfulness. But when we look at our world, that logic doesn't always play out. Tragedy is not always righteous, and often affects the least among us the most. But reading the text this week, after having learned so much in the past few years about world cultures, about history, about the planet and our interrelatedness, now I see this as an apt, wise, beautiful even, scripture, as long as we properly recognize the negatives of the text as well. In light of situations in our world like genocide, the potential devastation of nuclear and biological warfare, terrorism in its many forms, I now recognize Hosea as a timely call upon human beings to take responsibility for the future of our world. In our day, we do need to recognize that our sins do have consequences, and that these consequences are long-lasting and far-reaching when they become systemic and affect our planet. These sins include complacency, silence, ignorance, and refusal to see, acknowledge, and speak out against the real evil in our world, despite how good we may have it now. Having Hosea as part of our sacred scriptures forces us to face the questions: what legacy do we want to leave? What will future generations think of their ancestors? Will we leave the world better or worse than we inherited it? And frankly, I now appreciate the stark and shocking imagery of Hosea that alludes to our sins, calling us whores who will be devoured by lions and such. It's shocking imagery, but I like it, even and especially in the face of so much complacency amongst so many Christians, as they are not currently suffering too bad. Hosea forces the difficult question: are we faithful in times of plenty, giving as abundantly and mercifully as we have received? Or does our faith merely emerge and escalate in our own times of personal tragedy? Are we like the people of Israel when Hosea, in the name of God, laments, "They were satisfied, and their heart was proud. Therefore, they forgot me. Also, after learning so much Hebrew, I've come to very much appreciate the play on words throughout the book of Hosea that is not only nuanced and poetic, but frankly beautiful. Now, interesting and pertinent, much of the book of Hosea addresses the shifting political allegiances of Israel and its various neighbors. Hosea criticizes the relationships forged to enhance trade and wealth for Israel, while forsaking long-lasting allegiances that weren't so profitable. Hosea clearly names the sin of idolatry, putting God's like wealth before allegiance to God and God's ways. Hosea describes the people of Israel as going after lovers that give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. The people have taken the easy way out, rather than enduring in their hope and faith for God to provide. Chapter 2:8. She, Israel, did not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the wine, and the oil, and who lavished upon her silver and gold. But most pertinent, Hosea clearly states repeatedly that God is merciful, even more so than just. Our sins have consequences, but God's mercy is larger, wider, and deeper than even nationwide sin. Now, Hosea's 3 children receive names that pronounce God's judgment of the people's idolatry. In the first chapter, we read Hosea's first son is named Jezreel, God sows. His second child, a daughter, is named Lo Rahamah, no mercy. The next son is given the name Lo Ami, not my people. The naming concludes with an explanation of Lo Ami, for you are not my people and I am not your God. This is a direct reversal of the constantly repeated statement in the Torah, you are my people and I am your God. This is a stark and shocking statement describing just how far the people have fallen into their sin. But in a poetic and beautiful and nuanced introduction to the second chapter, we hear this. Say to your brother, Ami, and to your sister, Ruhamah, period. Now the children in chapter 1 are named Lo Ami and Lo Ruhamah. The Hebrew for no is the lo. The lo is the no, but here they are dropped. So putting all of this in English to see the nuance and using the actual Hebrew tenses, the second chapter begins by saying, say to your brothers, my people, and to your sisters, mercy. Here we see the delicate fine line of tension Hosea continually walks of God's judgment and God's mercy. And we see that mercy is first and foremost. All of this judgment threats are in the hopes of drawing the people back to God, to show them restoration, resurrection is not only possible, but what God truly desires. In chapter 2, after a long list of punishments God will deal, the prophet ends the section with these beautiful words. I will speak tenderly to her. I will give her her vineyards and make the valley of terror a door of hope. There she shall respond as in the days of her youth, as at the time when she came out of the land of Egypt. On that day, I will make for you a covenant with the wild animals, the birds of the air, and the creeping things of the ground. And I will abolish the bow, the sword, and war from the land. And I will make you lie down in safety. And I will take you for my wife forever. I will take you for my wife in righteousness and in justice, in steadfast love and in mercy. I will take you for my wife in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. On that day I will answer, says the Lord. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth, and the earth shall answer the grain, the wine, and the oil. And they shall answer Jezreel, God sows, and I will sow for myself in the land. And I will have pity on Lo Ruhamah, no pity. And I will say to Lo Ami, not my people, you are my people, and he shall say, you are my God. Now the sins of the people of Israel are listed all throughout Hosea, but no more clearly than in the beginning of the 4th chapter. There is no faithfulness or loyalty, no knowledge of God in the land, swearing, lying, and murder, stealing and adultery break out. Bloodshed follows bloodshed. Therefore the land mourns, and all who are in it languish, together with the wild animals and the birds of the air. Even the fish of the sea are perishing. The more they increased, the more they sinned against me. They changed their glory into shame. And from chapter 8, with their silver and gold, they made idols for their own destruction. Chapter 9 revisits the sin of Israel over the ages, a powerful reminder of how sin can compound over generations. Chapter 10 also presents a harsh and clear criticism. Sow for yourself righteousness. Reap steadfast love. Break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord, that he may come and rain righteousness upon you. For you have plowed wickedness. You have reaped injustice. You have eaten the fruit of lies, because you trusted in your power and in the multitude of your warriors. Therefore the tumult of war shall rise against your people, and all your fortresses shall be destroyed. I'm not sure about any of you, but a lot of that sounds very familiar to me. I found verse 4:12 especially intriguing. It says, my people consult a piece of wood rather than God. Now Hosea here is speaking of wooden idols, but the image that came to me was how I consult my bank account, often before consulting God. And what is our bank account but money? And what is our money but paper? Paper from wood. Oh, how Hosea condemns even me with his shocking and valid accusations. Chapter 6 repeats a common theme among the prophets. For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. Now, my much-loved New Interpreter's Study Bible comments, Hosea calls for fidelity to the covenant rather than sacrifices, justice joining many biblical witnesses who insist that God's most urgent demands are just dealings with one's neighbors, mercy and compassion and contriteness of heart. Sacrifices are a part of Israel's worship, but sacrifices devoid of private and public commitment to God's moral demands count for nothing. So I invite us this morning to honestly take a moment to clearly acknowledge and state some of the true evil in our world. The concentration of wealth to the very few, as our tax system policies have evolved to do over the last 50 to 60 years. Food and farming systems that harm the land, the animals, and us. Healthcare that has become a status symbol, as so many are denied access because of their poverty. A justice system that is unfairly lenient to the wealthy and unfairly harsh to the poor. A military-industrial complex that unquestionably soaks up our wealth and reveals our priorities as a people. That's what your insert is all about. An obvious lack of care for the least among us, proven by the fact that we live in the richest country in the history of history, and yet our country possesses 6 empty homes for each homeless person among us. And then, of course, there are our attitudes about immigration. The laws of God presented in Exodus clearly state, chapter 23, verse 9, "You shall not oppress a resident alien. You know the heart of the alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." Yet so many in our country, out of their true fear of having nothing, cry out against those who come here having nothing, rather than raising their voices against those who create the policies that cause us to have so little, and or those who have everything and more. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about in any of these situations, then I must say your sin is ignorance. For there is no reason in this electronic age for not educating ourselves about these evils. And if we remain silent, refusing to use our voices to raise awareness and speak out against these evils, refuse to live a life of witness to the better ways of mercy, righteousness, forgiveness, and love, then we too are guilty of sins that will have long-lasting and far-reaching consequences. But Hosea's dramatic description of God's continuing faithfulness to us, even in the face of such widespread sin and turning away, Hosea's is a message of hope for us today. I love how my NISB commentary says it. Mercy and justice are inseparably joined in God, but mercy comes first. The gospel of Jesus Christ reveals the truth. Resurrection. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. And Hosea says that over and over. God seeks to restore, to bless, to be in faithful, blessing covenant with us. And God seeks to use us to restore that covenant of blessings. Once again, Hosea is a book for such a time as now. I invite you to read it this week and see how it touches you. Amen.